The following are the words of Dearmod O'Flynn, a hero and a human being. Good to see there are a few left. For 143 weeks, we've been marching in Ballyhay in protest against the imposition of the bank debt burden on the Irish people. The most odious element of that debt is the promissory note of €31 billion. In our dealings with the various layers of the EU, the European Council, the European Commission, the ECB, the EU itself, we've met initial strong resistance to offering Ireland a break on this bank debt. We've been told over and over, these were your banks, this was your regulator, these were your politicians, your developers, this is your problem. The one area where they cannot make any of those claims is with the promissory notes. By 2010, the true picture of the catastrophic nature of what was happening right across Europe had emerged. By 2010, also, the EU and the ECB had become involved, centrally involved. The ECB could have refused to allow the Central Bank of Ireland print that €31 billion to bail out the two zombie banks. Because of their fear of contagion and so on, they didn't. Theirs was the final decision to allow that promissory note of €31 billion to be printed. Theirs then also lies the ultimate responsibility. Forget for a moment the legal question on the use of ELAs to fund the issue of the €31 billion. The bigger issue is this: why should the Irish people be held accountable for all that €31 billion plus interest? Why are future generations of Irish people being forced into at least 40 years of actual debt slavery to pay the principal and the interest on this €31 billion, when not 1 cent of those billions was used for the benefit of the Irish people? Not a single hospital bed, not a single classroom, not a metre of badly needed motorway, nothing. Quite simply, this is not our debt. We could have been far more demanding with this motion. We are well entitled to be far more demanding, but we haven't. A few more pertinent points. One, it is not seeking unilateral default. It is merely putting it to the government that to at least ask the ECB to allow the central bank to destroy those promissory note bonds. Two, this was not money borrowed to close the deficit in our budget. Three, this was money printed to bail out banks, bankers, bondholders, international institutional investors, the Eurozone and the Euro itself. 5, burning those bonds would have only a positive impact on the markets, reducing our national debt. 6, the ECB is hiding behind its own rules, the very same rules it bent and twisted to allow the €31 billion to be printed in the first place. This government is long on talk of restoring Ireland's reputation in Europe. We too would like to see that. Not the fawning lapdog reputation we have lately developed, but the Irish reputation of the wild geese. Irish brigades renowned for their courage and fighting spirit in the armies of France, Spain, and even further afield in the United States and Mexico. In real life, Dearmod O'Flynn is a sports journalist. Like most other Irish people, this is Dearmod's words: as I watched the Irish team lose at the death to the all-conquering All Blacks last Sunday, I had mixed emotions. Bitter disappointment, but massive pride at how the Irish players had fronted up in a game which people were talking about as annihilation. Afterwards, the New Zealand coach, Steve Hansen, said this: "We expected them to be tough. Every time we play them, we're tough. They're tough. But sometimes I don't know if they believe they're as tough as they are."
1 minute.
This is the only Ireland we know, the Ireland of hard battles on the GAA and soccer field, in international arenas with our boxers, our rugby players, our women and our men. In dealing with the EU, ECB on the promissory notes, Ireland never played tough, never fronted up, a walkover conceded. Now we're in the ironic position where the very people bailed out by the original €31 billion promissory notes will be bidding for these new promissory note bonds. This government is itself governed by fear. They speak of making tough decisions. There was nothing tough about taking on the sick, the infirm, the elderly, the disabled, about cutting health, education, the Gardaí, etc. Taking on the multinationals by introducing a minimal level of corporation tax, taking on the IFSC by adopting the financial transaction tax, taking on your own exorbitant salaries and expenses and thus setting an example. Finally, taking on the ECB itself Those were the tough decisions, but you have balked at them all.
Thank you,
More concerned, 1 minute or 1 second, for your new friends in the markets and your new partners in Europe than you are for your own people. They might be your partners. In fact, they are your partners. As you impose their demands on the Irish people, we see them as people who, if they have their way, would be our masters. And finally, they won't. We know now why they won't even ask that these promissory note bonds be destroyed. And yes, it is fear. Not the fear of being told no, but the fear of being told yes and being exposed for your incompetence and your cowardice. I commend the motion to the House.
I now put the question.